today's episode is Charissa Rubey of Dakota Micro. Dakota Micro is a global company located just 30 miles from my hometown in the very small rural community of Cayuga, North Dakota. And she has been in business for nearly 20 years, and she manufactures, she and her husband have built this company over that 20-year period where they manufacture cameras mostly for ag equipment. And she joins us today to tell us that story of what it's really like to run a global company from a small town. She shares a lot of the insights that she learned in hiring people, building the team, the things that she herself had to overcome in terms of her own deficiencies and skills. And really, she offers practical things that every single person that ever had a business on their heart could benefit from. And she also approaches it in a super practical way. I can't believe I didn't know her, and now you're going to wonder where she's been all your life too. So enjoy this chat with my new friend that seriously is a neighbor. It's crazy, Charissa Rubey. All right, hey, Charissa Rubey, welcome to the Growing Small Town Show.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you're a person, came into my sphere of influence through a mutual friend. We might as well call her out. It was Christy Dower at the Women's Business Center here in North Dakota. And I was like, what now? Like, who are we talking about? And you literally, I could practically hit your building with a rock from my community. And I ashamedly had never heard of you nor your business. So we could start there. Tell us like real quick, because I'm going to encourage everybody to go out and watch your YouTube video that you did a fantastic job giving the whole history of Dakota Micro. But what is Dakota Micro and who the heck are you? And why is it so weird to me that I don't know you? Because people would be like, why should she know you? Well, I feel like I should have. So,
well, it's all, first I'll give a little bit of a history. I am actually originally from Southern California. Mm-hmm. And I met and married my husband. He was living in California, and his dad had decided to quit farming and went through all the siblings, starting with the oldest one. Hey, you want the farm? No. Hey, you want the farm? No. And so, of course, got to the youngest, who's my husband, and said, hey, do you want a farm? And he said, no, I live in California now. I got a life here. And he was just really bummed for a while. And I was like, why don't we go back? And he was like, well, because you wouldn't go with me. I'm like, duh, yeah, of course I'll go with you. So we got married and we came back to the farm in the spring of, I think it was 92, because we got married in 91. I'm horrible with dates. I've actually had people remind me of my own birthday. So
but we don't have fact checkers on this show. So whatever, you could just say it and we'll be like, yeah, she totally got married in 91.
Yeah, horrible. No, so it would have been, so now I graduated high school in 91. So now that you said it, it would have been in 94 I got married.
Well, there you go. See, horrible. Yeah, no, we don't, it's fine. You're fine. You're good. Okay. It was a while back.
It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I got married when I was 20. So we moved there that following spring, and we were farming. And my husband, Dave, is camera shy, but he's incredibly smart. I always say he's the smartest socially acceptable person I've ever met. Because there's a lot of people who are incredibly smart, but you can't even, they have a difficult time communicating.
I shouldn't chuckle because it's a real thing. It's a real thing, right?
But he's one of these people who has this incredible skill and gift of very patiently explaining things to dumbasses like me.
And oh my goodness. Can I ask you one quick thing because I don't know that you kind of glossed over this, but moving from Southern California to North Dakota is no small thing. So can you just tell our audience what you had never been here? You had never been to North Dakota?
No. So I grew up in what's kind of a little more considered rural California. It's only 2 hours from LA, but there is hillbilly hell in California, and I lived there. And I grew up in a place called Lake Hughes. And I grew up on, I think the ranch was 6 acres, and there were pears. My mom was one of those people who had, a donkey. Why we had a donkey, I have no idea. We had chickens and ducks, and my mom insisted on cooking on a wood-burning stove. So she loved that really rural feel. So I kind of grew up with that anyway. So while it may seem like a big change for me, it really wasn't that much.
I was just thinking climate.
Yeah, climate is very different. But when I was done with high school, especially my generation, I'm 47. And for us, it was you had to not only be wife, mother, everything. And you also had to go out and get a job and a degree. And it was kind of, you had to do it all. And I remember telling people, I want to be barefoot and pregnant. I don't want a career. And it was like, oh, you're so smart, so I can't be a mom.
I'll make my kids smart. Thank you very much. Right.
So when I met Dave, who's, he's my everything. Everybody always jokes about, the one that got away. I get to keep my one that got away.
Oh, that's special.
I adore him endlessly. So when we moved here, so what happened was the very first time we came here, we drove in a little Dodge Colt that was, the heater didn't quite work, and it actually snowed from Vegas on. So it was kind of like a snow event we just had, but it was back in the 90s.
Oof.
Freezing ass cold. We get here. I've never seen anything colder than 20, 25 degrees. Mm-hmm. And we get here and it was beautiful, and it was cold. Yeah, but it was beautiful. And I love the rural environment, and I love the idea of farming. And he proposed to me that Christmas.
Oh, that's so sweet. For our listeners, though, can you give some context about what size community we're talking about here? Cayuga, North Dakota is your address, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, it's my address, but I don't live there. So for anybody who is familiar with the rural North Dakota setup, there used to be towns about every 6 miles. Maybe 50 years ago, there was a town every 6 miles. And then over the years, the town, and when I say a town, I mean 70 people. 70 to 300 people. Mm-hmm. And so over the years, then those kind of went down to, what would you say, back every 15 miles, probably every 15 to 30 now is where the towns are.
Yeah, you can go long stretches with nobody, but yes, I think, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well, that's when you get further north. And when you get north of Grand Forks, then you're kind of screwed for gas. But been there, ran out of gas. So our address is Cayuga, but that's only because that's where the post office used to be.
Right.
I'm actually 16 miles from Cayuga.
Okay.
My closest town is actually a tiny little town. It's called Geneseo, North Dakota. And it's 6 miles away. And I think the population is 12.
Yeah. So I wanted people to have context of like how truly rural you are.
Oh, yeah.
You are extremely rural.
Yeah. Our road is gravel. All our employees have to drive on gravel to get here. Mm-hmm. And I'm also the township clerk treasurer, so I'm always trying to keep our road nice. Mm-hmm. But which is a whole nother long story. But
maybe you can come back. You can come back for a future segment. We can just talk about townships.
Yes, townships. That's a whole nother fascinating topic for sure.
Yeah, it is.
But so we are very rural. That is no doubt. The thing is, we get to draw from these great communities around us. So while we're rural. The one hard part for us is we have Bobcat very close. Melrose is only 28 miles from us. Mm-hmm. And so they're a very good paying, company. They're a big company, and we've lost a few people to them. So, but the thing is, we are a very family oriented company. We have a lot of leeway and patience for, folks if they need to go pick up kids, or if they're farm wives and they need to help with the, harvest or whatever. And so we're a very family oriented company. And so it all depends what you want, what you're looking for in a job.
Right.
In Bobcat, we don't ever have like layoffs they have. We might, so it's all give and take what it is that you value in a job.
Totally. Yep. Okay. So what is Dakota Micro? So take us back to, you come here, right? You come here with your husband, and initially it's to take over the family farm.
Correct. So we had been farming for about 4 years with his father. And his father got cancer, and he passed away from lung cancer. And his father was very old school. And he said, there'll be a 4-wheel drive on this farm over my dead body. And he literally did not want us to have any of that larger equipment. He felt it was unnecessary. So I wasn't allowed to drive the combine as a girl. So, it was just stuff like that was very old school. He was a perfectly great guy. Don't get me wrong. It was just a very different generation.
Absolutely.
And so when he passed away, it wasn't a month later that we got a 4-wheel drive because we needed it. And we had been saving some money for those couple of years. And so we actually got a 4-wheel drive and an air seeder, and we were doing custom stuff with it because that was the way we could help pay for it. And then that fall, Dave had a neck surgery in his neck. We had a cervical fusion in his neck and had to wear the big neck brace. And he couldn't, driving a combine, you have to kind of look down to see the header and turn around and see if the hopper's full. And he couldn't do that. And I'm like, woohoo, I will drive the combine.
Oh, and by the way, I actually wrote this part of the story down when I listened to this. So please tell us what happened. Because I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I'm not allowed anywhere near anything.
Well, there was actually, so anyway, I was driving and we went to the bean head, which is the flex head, which if for people who are unfamiliar with it, it's basically like a big sickle section, like a big cutting bar along the bottom with a big wheel that pushes everything you cut into the machine. And so for soybeans, if the pods on the plant are really low to the ground, you got to run it pretty low to the ground. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're pretty low to the ground, there's rocks on the ground. Right. And that's actually what killed Dave's neck, was that field picking rocks and turning around and looking at them. So anyway, it was a rock that if it had just been a round rock, it wouldn't have caused the kind of damage it caused. I picked up a big old flat piece of slate. I don't even know where it came from. We think it was something somebody brought in to an old yard because it's not native for around here. Sure. And it got up and it kind of got into the combine, just sucked it up into the first part of the head, and then it wedged it up in there at an angle. And
what did that sound like?
Buckled.
Yeah. What did that sound like? Right away. Yeah. You were like, oh my God, like that crunch, the sound of metal crunching.
That metal, that I was like, oh crap. So while we had the header in to get fixed, Dave was like, all right, I got to combine, I got to see. And before that, we had a neighbor who had asked Dave to build him a fishing camera. So remember, I said Dave's the super smart guy. He's the smart guy in the neighborhood. People used to bring him stuff, broken stuff from garage sales, old metal detectors. Hey, fix this for me.
Okay, so this fills in a little bit in my head where I was like, wait a minute, how the hell did this come about? But he always had kind of a penchant for fixing things.
When I first met him, one of the very first things, like in the first 3 or 4 months we were together, somebody gave us an old computer. It was a huge, CRT monitor and an old computer. And he was super excited and playing with it. And the monitor let smoke out. It stopped working. He was hiding in that room for like hours and hours and then go in there and he's got the monitor apart and he figured out where the trace on the circuit board stopped and he fixed that monitor.
That's really cool.
He has this stuff in his head. He understands it in such a way that is not, you know what I mean? It really is impressive. We talk about this a lot because there's also that risk with that when you're smart that way, that people are like, oh, this is easy for you. No, it's because he loves it and he thinks about it all the time. And he's always looking at these little things. And so that's one of the risks that you have. So in a small community, when people are bringing things, hey, fix this, it's like, well, that's not fun for me.
Right. Yeah.
But when there was a project, there was a neighbor who said, hey, I want a fishing camera. And it was when they were first coming out with the fishing cameras. He's like, hey, can you build me one? None of them are really waterproof, the cameras. And so Dave's like, okay. And so he started gathering like a couple of different cameras and monitors. So we had those around when he was like, I wonder if I could take these and build a camera so I could see in the combine.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was like a little black and white CRT monitor, like those little tiny camper ones, and a little camera. And he basically rigged something up that worked for that season. And so I'm a graphic designer. That's what I was doing in California.
Right.
And we talked about it. And I am totally risk averse, like insanely risk averse.
That was another note that I made, by the way. I was like,
bad. Yeah. And he is, I'm just actually implementing a new management system within our company. And they refer to somebody like Dave as the visionary. And that's exactly true. He is our visionary. He sees things in such a way that are so fascinating and unique and different and really help you move forward in a way that is different than anybody would think. But anyway, so we talked about it. We're like, okay, if we want this, somebody else might want it because there wasn't anything really available on the market. This was back in 2001. And we went to our local dealership and I mocked up a fun little flyer for it as though we were actually making it. And we showed it to them and said, could you sell something like this? And they said, if you keep it under $1,000 for the whole kit, yeah, I could sell them all day long. So the first ones we spent like $1,800 on them and sold them for $1,000 because we were just buying some retail and,
Right. You were buying things like off the shelf and basically.
You don't have those.
Compiling. Yeah.
No, you don't have any of those things. And so that's where you start. And Dave went out on the road and he would sell. So I would call ahead. I would make his appointments. And he would stop at the places that I called that wanted to see him and he would sell them on a system. And we started building them. And he'll tell you how horrible I am sometimes at thinking about how long it takes to drive somewhere. So I've made horrible appointments for him where he'll be in like Pennsylvania and the next day he needs to be in like Florida. So he'll tell you horror stories about that.
Well, okay. Can I stop you for a second, Charissa? Because my mind was actually blown all the way when I watched this YouTube video, because so here's a couple of thoughts I had. Okay, so the whole business is born out of your own need, which often happens, right?
Yep.
Often happens. And then you go, well, if we need it, other people might need it. Totally makes sense. Even the idea that you had to make a flyer, to mock up a flyer and be like, look, this is something we're doing, even though, like you said, you weren't necessarily, it was more just to give somebody that has access to people that might need it, right? That kind of dealer, a dealer, if you will. That was your first, quasi dealer. All of that makes sense. But the question I have is, you guys were farming. Did you have like a bigger conversation about, okay, so we're doing this, like this is a business now. You know what I mean?
No, that's a good question. It's a really great, insightful thing. So what we figured, our thought was, if we can make grocery money for a couple of years, that would be great.
Yeah.
That was our thought. Yep. Because we assumed that, because this was obviously a market that was coming. You know what I mean? The machinery is getting bigger. Video technology is getting better. That's when the little flat screen TVs were just really becoming a thing. And the CCT cameras were becoming more and more available, the components. And we're some backyard folks building this stuff. Some big company will come and crush us in a couple of years. We just figured if we could make enough grocery money for a little while and have a little side business for a little while until the farm grows up big enough and we can afford more land or more equipment. So the intention was not for it and originally to be its own company. Right. So there's actually more detail that I never tell the story of. There's two other components to this which prepared us for this. One is, well, there's several. When we very first moved here, we were always looking for something else to do. So we tried a couple of different things. Like we were one of the very first dealers for farm software way back when. And just because we just wanted to make extra money. We were farming 640 acres and we had the really old farm equipment. I mean, it was, we were building shares with his dad. So we just weren't making the kind of money.
That's not enough acreage. To survive.
And so we were looking for something else. So we started off selling farmwork software and we did that for a little while. And so we kind of dipped our toe into the sales. And then we started selling advertising for a magazine called Ag Dealer. And it was a magazine that was up in Canada at the time. And we have a friend who's Canadian. They would send us this and said, hey, I bet you guys could really do well with this, selling it in the United States and selling ads for it. So we approached them and said, hey, could we try to sell this in the United States? Could we be your rep for the Dakotas territory and we'll go out and sell the ads and make money? And we did that for a while and it didn't work out with that company, but we learned a lot and we developed relationships with those dealers.
Yeah.
So we knew a lot of the dealers. Yeah. So that's where we had the initial network to go and sell them the AgCam product. And then there's a third thing, which is before Dave hurt his neck, we had started another little company. So Dakota Micro actually already had a name before we started selling the cameras. His brother is involved in a company called Given Imaging, used to be, and we were making a test cap for them. So what that is, there's that little pill that you swallow as a camera. Mm-hmm. They have sensors that they hook up to your body to sense the cameras that passes through your system and takes little pictures. They didn't want a black market in the retrieval of these little pills. Gross. And so what they do is they short circuit after a certain amount of time. So what they wanted was when you hook up a person, they needed something to test all these sensors. So they didn't take the pill out of the box and it activated the camera and it had only so much lifespan because it was going to short circuit. If the person wasn't hooked up right, they didn't have enough time. So we built that little pill camera into a little push button tester. And his brother contracted with us to do that. So that's where we kind of had that electronics manufacturing was a little teeny tiny thing that we were doing.
Yeah, but you guys are you're like total Renaissance people. I just think this is so damn cool. And I'm telling you, like, this is so out of my depth of understanding and knowledge. Like electronics and I, we're not super simpatico. Like I do fine, but I don't understand how any of it works, Charissa. Like, it is not in my wheelhouse at all. So for me, like, listening to this story, I just think it's amazing. But what I want to be careful to do, and I'm sure you feel this way too, right? If we've got people listening to this, they have their zone of genius, whatever. So Dave's was electronics. Like, he geeked out about this stuff and was interested in it. And so I think the lesson here, at least, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, please, you're the guest. But I think it's recognizing that especially when we have a really specific passion and we also have some aptitude for that thing by itself could be solving problems. And then if we can solve problems with our passion and our aptitude, that's where businesses are born from. Right?
It's all about your skill and your give a shit, frankly, because and it's all about the team, because Dave and he has a passion and a skill for electronics and figuring things out and logic.
Yep.
And he's a risk taker. Everybody, they need that balance. And so I am a very risk averse person. I'm a money saver. I'm all about, if we're going to do this, we need to make sure we're not going to lose our ass. I got to keep all the numbers right. I'm also a graphic designer and I'm a graphics person. So I was able to, and I have a personality for sales. And so for me, I was like, okay, you can build it. I got to sell it. And so you have to have, and that's one of the things I do notice when people start businesses, they might have a portion of that skill, but they always need to make sure in my experience, it's very rare for a single person to have all the skills necessary. Usually
my word. Yeah.
Creative, visionary. And so again, I'm reading this book. It's kind of a fascinating look, and it talks about the visionary and then talks about the integrator. And the integrator is the person who takes those ideas and makes them a reality and works with the rest of whatever company that's built to make sure that those things become something that's viable and worthwhile and makes that vision a reality.
Are you reading Traction?
I am. Very good.
So we're going to link to that book because that is a great book. And I think, and again, I absolutely want to just highlight the amazing success that you guys have had. But I want for people to believe that it's possible for them too. But not in a unicorn, like, oh, just believe it and it'll happen kind of. That's such BS advice. And so many people, when you turn to like internet gurus, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the kind of BS that they feed people.
Yes.
And then you think that all you need is your passion. Well, holy crap, it is so much harder than that. So to that point of like figuring out what you need, like you personally, do you have any advice or like, you guys seem to just, and the thing is, anytime it's magical, it's not just like magic. There's hard work that goes into it, right? Otherwise, it strips you of your due.
Well, I agree with you. You're absolutely right. One of the biggest things is, there's a couple of things within what you just said. So, for example, I chat with different folks, and I actually help mentor different companies. And I find that a lot of times these companies, nobody's telling them the bad news. Nobody is telling them that, there's a gal, I don't know if you know who she is. Her name is Veronica Michael. She's in Fargo. She's Prairie Products. Fascinating lady. You should talk to her.
I will.
She has single-handedly started her own manufacturing business for hemp products.
Oh, I have heard of her. I've heard of her. Probably Christy.
Amazing lady.
Christy probably told me about her.
Anyway, but the point is, though, is her and I talk, and one of the things we talk about is nobody's straightforward. Nobody tells you it hurts. It hurts your soul to change how you need to change. I am a very open person. If somebody says something, hey, we should try this. I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's look at that. Let's try this. And to be the boss of a company, I am not, in the past, I was never equipped to be the boss. I knew how to work hard. I didn't know how to tell other people to work hard. And even worse, I didn't know how to hold them accountable. And those things are so important. And those are the skills that hurt you deep down inside to develop. And I've always said that a change that's easy isn't a good change, because it doesn't mean that you really...
That's quotable there, Charissa, because so true. Yeah, it's not probably a meaningful change if it's easy.
If it's easy. And the thing is, one of the things that, as you grow, people need to hear the hard stuff. They need to hear this hurt. This was hard. This was a struggle. People laugh at, when we were very first starting, I had zero financial background. I tried to look online and find out what a P&L would look like, or a balance sheet, or, and understand what they meant and what they were for.
Right.
And it's okay to start there. It's okay to start with, I have this much money, I spent this much money, and I have this much money left. And so often, especially like you were talking about these internet gurus and stuff, oh, you have to have this fancy P&L, and you have to have this, and you have to have a business plan. You know what? It's okay to build your little origami bird and walk into it within the palm of your hand to that business and say, do you want to buy my little bird? How much would you pay me for my little bird?
Gosh, I think that is the advice right there. That is it right there. Like, don't build a website if you have it's all of the things, right? Like, there's so much involved with scaling a business the way that you guys have scaled this business. And I am ashamed that I didn't know you before, but I'm so damn proud to call you a North Dakotan, because SoCal maybe gets to like claim your origins, but we're claiming you now. You belong to us now.
So I will clarify. After I moved here, I found out that my family was from Devil's Lake.
Well, there you go. Okay, so yeah, you're totally ours then. So we're claiming the origin too. But this is the stuff that I think, through growing small towns, this is the kind of thing that I hope, not just with our podcast, right? I mean, we get to talk to awesome people. But when I think about materially, what kinds of programs and support systems do people that want to launch or scale businesses, what do they need?
You're actually going to get me, you're probably going to hear something that a lot of people don't want to hear. And so this is where I'm always the bearer of bad news.
No, that's good. I like it. So let's hear it.
There's all these programs that are out there. All they are, so many of them, and they're well-intended, right? All of these grant programs and all of these community programs and everything. The intention is always to help. The problem is, to help, they need money. And then they need you to be the person that they can say, look, this person's great. They need money. We gave them money. Look how great they did. And the problem is, everybody then has their hands out and in your pockets and in your head and wanting to, I'm going to show you this, or I'm going to have you talk to this person. And you get really scattered, and there's, Raggy, there's a bunny, it's like you get so distracted, and that distraction it takes away from your focus, and it makes you feel like, if you have somebody who you feel like is knowledgeable, that you're looking for advice, and they say, look over here, this is where you're going to make money. And then the next person says, oh, no, look over here, this is where you're going to make money. You're like a crazy person. It reminds me of when I first moved here. Dave told me a story about the barn cat, how they knocked over a bunch of bales, and all these mice came running out from under the bale. And the cat, as fast as he could, gathered up like 5 mice sticking out of its mouth. And then under one paw had 2, and under another paw had 2. And it's looking at all the other mice running away. You can't do all of it. You have to decide.
What a perfect analogy. That's exactly it. And I think sometimes we don't get back to just like so my gosh, I am so grateful to be talking to you, because I just think it is all so relevant and so important, because first of all, only you get to decide why the hell you want a business. Okay. I mean, that's like, what kind of business do you want? I mean, do you want something to develop into full time? Now, like with you guys, I get you had a goal. The goal was to make grocery money.
Yeah, but then we did have to change us. That was in the beginning. Once we realized we actually had a business, we had to make that choice. And I think we were in business for 2 years. And so our goal was for us to get paid, for us to actually collect a paycheck. And that took 4 years. 4 years for us to collect anything out of the business. And the employees we hired, and this is another thing too, is we hired family. That's what you do first. And then you usually hire people and then their family. And unless you have a very clear relationship with those people, do not do it. I don't care how great it sounds.
Like as in boundaries, when you're saying clear relationship. Yeah. Yep. That is really hard. But so you're also touching on the fact that, well, you're laying out how actually long it took you, which is so relevant, because again, you have to look at people and say, well, how long do you want to work without making any money at this thing? Like because that's legitimate, and it's really hard, and it is not what anybody tells you.
Don't take investor money. Don't hide run away. If somebody's trying to say, oh, I'll help you grow fast, I'll give you a bunch of money. The worst thing for any company is to all of a sudden have a big influx of funds and to be beholden to these people, because the more money they give you, the faster they're going to expect a return on it because they figure it's an investment. But buying a bunch of stuff before you're ready for it, how do you know what to buy? How do you know what you need?
Gosh, that's so valuable. Yeah, that's so valuable. And like you said, I think you described a lot of these businesses and not growing small towns as a nonprofit. And one of the things that I have found so challenging, getting this thing off the ground is finding the right partners.
Yes.
Because it's not just you have money, I'll take it. Thanks. It's because I acknowledge that exact transfer, which is I take your money and now I owe you something, or you have an expectation of me and my organization, which is, of course, that's how it goes. But what I want to do is say, okay, this is what we're trying to build. Do you want to be a part of it? And if you have money to help support that, great. And this is how we're going to do that. This is what our partnership looks like. Otherwise, like you said, you're standing around like, can anybody help me? And every dollar that you get from, whether it's like VC, whether it's venture capitalists or like angel investors, if you have a for-profit, or if it's donations or contributions, if you're nonprofit, there's strings attached to that money, especially with the government too, let's just say, because that's another pool of funding. Holy Moses,
Well, that's, early on in our business, we, when in 2008, when that whole financial issue went down, we were just launching new products that depended upon some government funding. We were launching into in-car video systems for law enforcement, and they changed how the funding happened. And at that point in time, I'd have paid somebody to take this business off my hands. It was a nightmare.
I bet.
And and we had taken money, some loan money through one of the government agencies, and we almost lost our farmland and everything. It was not good.
Yeah. What a challenge.
And it never got quite that close. We were I'm super, but I was mad. I was mad at how it all played out because you don't take, and that was a big lesson right there, is don't take money unless you are certain of exactly how you're going to pay it back and how you're going to do it. And let me qualify that. We didn't almost lose our farmland. We almost had to put our farmland up as collateral.
Right, which is,
and so that to me was huge because I didn't want that. I wanted our business to be our business and be separate. And so once again, but we were all in, man. I had like 8 credit cards ramped up to the highest rate that you could do. We built our company originally with credit cards.
Yeah, you actually referenced that on the YouTube video. I wrote that down too. Because again, I just think it's not everybody really gets that, like, even with a solid business plan, if it's just based on projections, or if it's something brand new, like what you guys were doing, what would you know about what you could possibly sell or how it would work out? And so you end up self-financing. And a lot of people just don't, I just don't think there's enough of appreciation for what that really means and the leap of faith that you're taking at that time.
And it is. The thing is, sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes it does. You do reach a critical mass, right? That you have to make dust or eat dust because you're going to hit that critical point. And it's when you actually start building a customer base that's reliable and you're treating them right. Inevitably, the next step is, I'm big enough. I have to hire somebody. And you hire somebody, this is your baby. You sit with your baby every minute they're in the bathtub, and you hire somebody else to watch that baby in the bathtub, and all of a sudden the baby's drowning because you handed that off to somebody else, and you don't even know how to hire that somebody else. You don't even know what skills are needed or accountability, like I said. So all of those things, I can talk to people till I'm blue in the face, okay? The best I'm going to do is give a tiny little inkling of a warning that it's going to happen because you have to experience it. It is human nature. You can tell people all day long all the things that they got to worry about and all the things they should watch for. And until it's a very personal experience, that's where it means something.
I think that is probably why I struggle so much with bullshit advice. Not that people's advice in and of itself is bullshit, but it's the fact that, okay, so that worked for you, Charissa, but you're you.
Yes.
And you're married to Dave. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff that isn't going to get replicated across businesses, right? I always stress that too. Like, we learn by doing. Yeah. We learn by getting our hands dirty. I actually am going to share this really, it's going to sound so stupid, but my son, last night we were doing English language. He's 11. So I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old girl. Okay. So Andrew and I we're doing English language arts. It's called IXL. It's an online thing, and they do these things, right? So we're looking at, he's supposed to find the word that's wrong in the sentence. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it was the word desert, and it should have been dessert. And
I wouldn't have even caught that.
Yeah. Okay. So he immediately catches it. And I said, oh, good for you. And I said, how do you keep that straight? I said, do you say like, are the double S's like sweet Sundays? And like, that's how I remember it. Cause sometimes you just need those little mind tricks, right? And he goes, no, he said it was when I was like 7 and we were playing a board game. So he was talking about our cousins. He was playing this board game and he goes, and I was supposed to get them to say the word and I mistook it.
Oh.
And I looked at him and I said, you screwed up and you felt a little stupid.
Yes.
I mean, I hate to just boil it down, but that's what it is. I'm like, nobody else telling you this is how it's going to be ever impacts us the same as when we do it and we screw up. Mm-hmm. And so the whole journey of any business, no matter if you're selling your origami birds or you're selling cameras and you're manufacturing your own thing, you're going to come up against something that you've never done before. And you can Google it. You can find ideas or ways or things to try. Like Google is amazing.
That's
you know, I mean, huge. It's huge, like what we can learn. But you're still going to have to try it, probably tweak it, probably iterate it, and make it fit for you.
Yep. And the other thing, too, that's within that same scope is there are times when you don't know what that next step is. You feel so that's actually the struggle that me as the owner, I'm currently working through, which is I gave away the very last of my jobs here a couple months ago. I still was doing some sales and marketing.
Okay.
And I totally gave away the last of those jobs. And it's the reason I'm reading Traction because, so for those of you who don't know, Traction is, it has a management system called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's one of those things that you can pay to have somebody come in and organize your business to follow this. But I'm taking out of it what works for us because I've never been one to take a whole system and apply it, blindly. I will take the pieces that I see fit. And so we're kind of looking at utilizing that. But I found that I didn't know what to do. When I gave away those tasks, I was incredibly lost. I actually disengaged from the business for a little while in some ways because I had to look at it from a very 50,000 foot view and see what's missing. And I kept telling myself, I wish I knew this. I wish I knew this. And I'm like, I'm the boss. I'm allowed to ask for that. I can have that information, but it's a change. And so it hurt. It hurt because it felt like I'm not that kind of person that's going to be nosy and, why is this happening and why is that happening? And then I realized I can't run this company without knowing those things, without having my finger on those pulses. And I don't have to know why it's happening. I just have to know the end result. I just need this number.
And the cool thing about that is that because you've hired out key positions, right? And then you ask for these key bits of data, that's the management and the accountability for their areas of responsibility is built into the reporting structure. Like, woo, you've made it, Charissa. You've made it.
Right now, it is structural. It is a skeletal structure. And so that's what it's hard because I feel bad because I'm always like, I need this. And they're like, how the heck do I figure this out? You never did it before. And I'm like, I know, sorry, but I need this.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Because you feel like, okay, I should help you figure out exactly how to do it and where all the data is and help you put the documents together. Because I'm one of those people, I'm all about the Excel documents and putting all the data together. And, I love doing that stuff, but I need to do it on different things. And
right.
I've been looking at the structure of our company, not as a hierarchy, but almost on a plane. Because I hate being the boss. I hate when people call me the boss, but I am. I can't escape this. It is a fact.
Nope. Right.
And so I would like our company to look, instead of a hierarchy that I'm on top and these people are under me, I just want it to be, this is my responsibility. And these are your responsibilities. They're different. And you are 100% responsible for these things. And so I just want to start everybody, and I think anybody within any company should look at it that way, because when you start getting somebody who feels like they're the boss of other people, or I'm going to tell you what to do, instead of holding them accountable for what's supposed to be done and what their responsibilities are, you move from the potential of being arrogant to being a true boss and a true manager, because that accountability flows through.
Well, and that's where I would say it's not just to compare your company to Bobcat specifically, but we talked about it earlier. When you get to a size of some of these other manufacturing companies, that ability is just the ability to say, like, you fully own this whole thing, and I'm here to support you, and you're going to need to provide stuff to me, but it's your baby. That isn't as common in an enormous company, because clearly that would get unwieldy really fast, right? So I think that's one of the really cool things about the way that you're thinking about this, because the really motivated people that are interested in having ownership and feeling good about that level of responsibility are going to be attracted to working for a company like yours.
That's what I was going to say. A company like Bobcat, I don't want to be in charge of that anymore. I'm going to go off to somebody else, something else that's fun. If we grew to that size, well, there's going to be a size where I'm going to be like, not fun anymore, I'm done.
Yep.
Because it's not me. It's not what I do.
Well, and that there again, that goes back to why do you have your business and what do you ultimately want it to be? And we have to know ourselves well enough to know when it hits a point that it's not even fun to us anymore. And then,
if you take your hobbies and you make them all a business. So for example, I'm also an artist. I also paint, and I sell some of my stuff in Fargo. But everybody's always like, oh, you can make so much more money, and you could if you did this many in a year. And I'm like, then it's not fun.
Then it's not the outlet that it is for you right now.
Yeah. But I do like having a place, and it feels good to know that people buy my things that I paint. But I've been turning down commissions because I'm like, I don't want to paint that. I have other things to do. And if it's a job, I have a job.
Yep. And I think that, again, it all comes back to like maybe quit seeking all of the outside advice and spend a little time with yourself and the people that are going to be a part of this with you, and make sure that you're building something that you actually want to build.
Well, and talk to people that speak to you and speak to your heart.
Right.
And that, because you know when you're talking to somebody and you feel that little tickle in the bottom of your stomach that's like, this isn't, this might be good advice, but it's not my advice. It's not.
Yep. There's a difference between even great advice. If it's not going to work for you, it's not meant for you.
I will give you a perfect example. When we first started our company, it was maybe 4 years in, and we went to talk to SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Entrepreneurs in Fargo. Yep. They were recommended, because we were really struggling with our employees. They were not doing what we wanted them to do. We were feeling like we were a great company, and like every Friday we would invite everybody to stay after work and have a beer, Well, it started off, they would take a beer and put one in each pocket and then leave with the beer. It was like, it wasn't even, it just got to the point where it was like out of our control. And we went, and this is when we still had all the family working for us and family of people that work for us, and everybody was related somehow. And we went to SCORE, and they looked at us and said, fire everybody. And we're like, that's not reasonable. We can't do that. And they're like, fire everybody. Within 3 years, everybody was gone, but that wasn't the right messaging to give, because you can't just tell people that. You can't tell them you've made all the wrong choices. You're a dumbass. That's basically what you're saying.
Yep. And I think, like you said, anytime that's the advice you get, especially if they're going to sell you the system that's going to fix you, run for the freaking hills. It's crap. And there's a lot of it being peddled. Business is so much harder than that. And if there were one perfect system, then we'd all be doing it.
Yes.
And all of our business would look exactly the same. And they don't.
Right. Like you said, everybody's different. Everybody's skill set's different. So for example, if you have somebody who is really good at structural, they might not be good at the creative. And you have to find where those gaps are within your business and within your structure. And it doesn't matter if you hire somebody or you simply seek out advice from somebody that can offer you that insight. I just always tell people, don't let other people tell you what you can and can't do. If we'd have listened to all the people who told us what we couldn't do, we wouldn't have been invited to the White House last year to be, the Made in America product showcase. I wouldn't have been the North Dakota Small Business Person of the Year last year.
Yes, by the way, I was going to get to these amazing accomplishments, Charissa, you guys have done. Amazing things. So let's reiterate that one. So the White House, you were invited to the White House. That's cool. That's super amazing. And then you were North Dakota's in 2020. Mm-hmm. You were the Small Business Administration Business and Person of the Year.
Yeah, but it really got, with COVID, it was like...
I know. I wrote that down because you were supposed to get to go to Washington for that honor too, right? And that didn't get to happen.
No, yep, exactly.
Doesn't strip you of the amazing thing that you've accomplished, though. So
I got a cool crystal award thing, which is super cool.
Do you carry it around with you?
I should. It weighs 500 pounds.
Yeah. Maybe you should make it
thing that you could.
I think I was going to say, or build a dolly that has to be pulled behind. Strap your award down to it.
Little red wagon for my
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I think what's so cool about all of this, well, first of all, you're just an absolutely endearing human being, which is so lovely. Your business hasn't, your ego hasn't overshadowed. You're still really humble, really down to earth. I am so thankful to know you. And we're going to meet in person shortly here because it's just necessary.
32 miles from me?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But can you give us a quick, we landed on the accomplishments, but as we wrap up, and you're coming back, by the way, I've just decided. It's decided that you're going to come back.
I don't know if I ever actually said what we do. So
Yeah, right. Exactly. Isn't that funny?
We make backup cameras, super ruggedized backup cameras for farm equipment. So I kind of alluded to that when we talked about but we make really durable backup cameras. And so and we're a global company. So if you were to get a Gleaner combine or a Fendt tractor, it would have our camera on it. We're a factory option for AGCO.
Yeah, which is amazing.
For Versatile. So there's a lot of big brands. And then if you we have a dealership network of over 700 dealers throughout the globe. And so we have a really great structural company. Mm-hmm. We have just under 25 employees. Okay. Not huge. But
for a tiny town in rural North Dakota, that is meaningful. Those are jobs. Mm-hmm. Those jobs mean something to every single family, and they mean a lot to the community that you've chosen to set up shop into.
Yep. And that's one of the things that's going to be, part of the board meeting. After this, I have a board meeting today, and one of the conversations is about the whole $15 minimum, $15 an hour minimum wage. And because what happened was when we got the tax cuts from Trump, we took all that and put it back into the company. We increased the amount we pay for health insurance. We started offering an IRA, basically a 401k type of thing, extra days, off and stuff like that. We put it all back into the employees. And if they take that away and require, I think most of our employees are over that wage, but if we hire anybody new, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely, it does.
And it kind of makes it unfair because you have people starting at $12 an hour and they've worked here for many years and they're they're above. There's even some people that have been here for a very long time that started at, $9 an hour when we didn't have anything to pay but dirt.
Exactly. Right.
You bring them a basket of tomatoes from my garden and say, I hope this will be enough extra. Please come back tomorrow.
And they do.
Yeah. No, we've got amazing people. We've got people who have been here 10, 12 years. And next year will be our 20-year anniversary of business. We started in 2002.
Are you doing something fun? We
haven't decided yet. I don't know, because Dave keeps saying that he wants to do something that combines my 50th birthday, which is not for another 2.5 years. So it'll be a 1.5 year difference.
Okay, tell Dave, put the brakes on it, man. Come on, right? No, but I think that's awesome.
So yeah, no,
good to make you turn 50 sooner. Yeah, well, big parties are, and you've got the land and the space. You could do it up right.
We did a big fireworks thing for his 50th birthday, and I think it was Dakota Micro. It was a couple of years back, but we did a big fireworks thing. And again, typical small town. It was so funny. We did the big fireworks thing, and we literally had a fireworks display here, and then we had a meal for our people and the people we invited. Well, people around the area saw this happening. So we just had random people driving up and eating and watching the fireworks. And then the next year we had people driving up going, where are the fireworks? We thought there was a picnic and fireworks. And we're like, no.
That is so small town. And I love it. I love it. This story, it is one for the ages. friend. It really is.
Well, I am so glad to have met you. And so if it makes you feel any better, I didn't know about you either. So
well, I know it just goes to show we maybe don't celebrate openly, like big and loud enough sometimes. Like you get caught up in what you're doing, and thankful to people that can make connections for me and for people like you. It's just fantastic. So you have given, I have like just a whole page of notes. I can't wait to share this episode with people. We in the show notes will link to Dakota Micro. We're going to link to that YouTube video because I just think you did a great job, by the way, of just really easily telling your story. I also love that you're like, I have a tendency to swear, which I thought was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have so much fun. You're like, I don't always. Yeah. You totally did. You totally did. Yeah, it was great. And so please don't be a stranger. Come back and see us again. I can't honestly congratulate you enough on your success and your hard work. Let's not boil this down to magic. There might be some cool interplay between you and Dave that created some magic, but it ultimately is lots of hard work and persistence and grit. And
humbleness and the ability the ability to see that it's necessary and not get stuck that I'm right, you're wrong. It tends to happen. And you got to be open to the possibilities. You really, really do. Looking inward, and it hurts because it's gross inside sometimes. You're like,
is.
Oh, I don't want to see that. La, 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 la.
Right. Maybe I'll just hire a consultant and they'll fix me, right? That's never the answer. It's not the answer. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And I can't wait to have you back again soon.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for having me on.
So much fun. I could have talked to Charissa for hours, and I promise you she will come back. I said that to her. She will. She will come back. She also one day is going to make an appearance in our building when it's up and ready, and we're going to continue to learn from her. So many valuable things. Be sure to check out Charissa's Fast Five. She does answer just a series of random questions, but like all kick-ass business owners, she just cannot help but to drop really great wisdom in that Fast Five. So simply go to growingsmalltowns.org/Fast Five to catch her latest and her email, and you will get that bonus content from Charissa's episode. I hope that you found that as inspiring as we did. And as always, until we see you again, just keep doing what you can with what you have right where you're at. Growth is possible. It's rarely easy, but it's always worth it. We'll see you guys soon.